Let's start with the salute the flag, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Carberry is absent. Commissioner Connell.
Here.
Commissioner Layton is absent. Commissioner Tonight.
Here.
Commissioner Irons.
Yes, ma'am.
And Commissioner Bracy.
Present.
Commissioner Layton is actually excused. Okay. Yep, she is at a conference about pizza. I wish I was at a conference about pizza.
As good as any.
Yes.
And then we have a resignation from David Western.
Yes, so he resigned effective March 13th. We are working, we posted it, we posted the vacancy. We hope to have enough applicants for the council to appoint at the April city council meeting. It will be on their agenda. If we don't have any, of course, that will get delayed to May, but we've had a couple people express an interest. We just haven't had anybody apply yet, have we?
I have not seen any.
Okay, I haven't either. So I would just encourage any and all of you, if you know of anybody who might be interested in serving on the planning commission, to please encourage them to reach out to either myself or Amanda, either one of us. So
I might know someone.
Jamie, I just texted her and her appointment that she was at got pushed back, so she's not gonna be able to get on Zoom, she doesn't.
okay,
So,
good to know.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Approval of minutes. Did everybody get a chance to read the minutes?
They're a little long. We kind of had a lot to cover last month. So,
5 points.
I'll make a motion to approve the February 1st, 2024 meeting.
Okay, motion to accept the minutes as is.
I'll second it.
With a second?
Yep.
Can we take a vote? Super Bowl.
Commissioner Connell.
Yes.
Commissioner Tonight.
Yes.
Commissioner Irons.
Yes.
And Commissioner Bracy.
Yes. All right, it's approved. Public hearing for chaparral phase. The public hearing on DIV 24-000001 is called to order. Gary and Carol Mon, is that pronounced right? Mon, who are the owners. The subject property describes tax law 100 of essentially map 4 North 17A. It is zoned residential multifamily. This request to approve a subdivision. Criteria found in the Boardman Development Code, Chapter 4.3 Land Divisions and Lot Line Adjustments, entertained process Type 3 decision. Public hearing this evening, we conducted as follows: staff report, public testimony in the following order: applicant, anyone in support of the application, testimony opposing the application, neutral testimony, and rebuttal. After that, we'll close the testimony. After the record is closed for testimony, no other testimony will be heard from anyone unless the planning commission has a specific question. Planning commission may ask questions of staff, after which the planning commission will discuss the matter and make a decision. Planning commission may make a final decision tonight, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain in the future. If the matter is continued, this will be the only notice of that time and date you will receive. For testimony, if you wish to speak, please fill out a testimony form submitted to the associate planner. I will recognize those people wishing to speak. Any questions should be addressed through me. Please state both your name and address for the record when you come to the podium, as the hearing is being recorded and is on Zoom. Please keep testimony concise and to the point. Testimony should be on action under consideration and address the substantive criteria. Criteria that apply to the decision are listed in the staff report. Testimony on other issues will be rejected and not considered by the planning commission. Failure to raise an issue in detail to allow the planning commission and the parties, the ability to respond to issues, prohibits an appeal to the land use board of appeals based on that issue. Similarly, failure to raise constitutional or other issues regarding any conditions of approval in sufficient detail to allow the planning commission to respond to these issues prohibits a lawsuit in circuit court on that basis. Now I ask the members of the planning commission to disclose any ex parte, context, bias, or conflicts of interest. Please indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte, contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing. Hearing none, does anyone in the audience wish to challenge a planning commissioner's impartiality? Hearing none. Planning official Carl McLean will now present the staff report. Very please.
Thank you. So I know some of you were probably here 3 years ago when because I wasn't here, when you all went through this previously back in 2021. So for some of you, this is a redo. It is the same preliminary plat that we saw back in 2021. It's the same project. It's Chaparral Phase 2. It's 66 lots with associated infrastructure that includes water, wastewater, other utilities and streets. The applicant is Ron McInnes, the owner is Gary and Carol Mon. And just the script identified this as residential multifamily. It is just simply residential. It's not residential multifamily. So geographically, we are north of Wilson. We're also kind of north of Mount Hood Avenue, and we are east of Baylor Road. The approval criteria you find in chapter 4 under 4.3 land divisions and lot line adjustments. We are specifically applying the approval criteria for a preliminary plat. In this particular instance, there's just a kind of handful of approval criteria. The whole chapter is applicable, the whole chapter 4.3 is applicable to land divisions, subdivisions, and lot line adjustments. Some of it is specific to some issues that aren't applicable or aren't triggered by this application. There's also standards in there about the final plat. And so once the infrastructure is installed, they'll have to meet the standards that are in there for the final plat. They'll have to submit that, it'll be reviewed, we'll confirm that everything's been installed. We have all the letters from DEQ and OHA. But tonight we're looking at their preliminary plat and the standards that are applicable to that. So one of the things we look at is, does the preliminary plat comply with all of the applicable development code sections? There is some requirements in there that were written prior to the digital age and require that plat has to be submitted on paper of a certain size. We accept them electronically now. We can zoom in and zoom out accordingly. So we don't get hung up in some of that older stuff, but we do look at what is submitted. What I will say is that we've brought forward things from the previous record. So one of those things that we brought forward from the previous record is the approved engineering plans. So as part of the last process, and where they did get to is Ron McInnes, who is functioning as the surveyor, also functioned as the engineer in that previous review process, and submitted all of the plans for the installation of the water, the wastewater, the streets, and the other components that engineers deal with. Those were reviewed and preliminarily approved. And there was a notice to proceed issued, and it didn't happen for one reason or another. They didn't move forward with construction of the infrastructure. So again, the decision lapsed, and that's why we're back here today. So for the most part, we've deemed the application complete by both what they submitted now and going back and picking out some of the stuff from their previous submittal. Chaparral Park as the proposed name was used for this development for phase 1. They're now using it for phase 2. Phase 1 was recorded several years ago. This will be phase 2. It'll be recorded once they get the streets and everything installed. Kind of already talked about 3. I'm going to move on to 4. There's no private common areas or improvements, that are being requested or, approved in this. Block and lot standards. I find it interesting. I've had, Nancy and I both have received inquiries from people about why are we allowing somebody to do a subdivision with 5,000 square foot lots? We're still trying to figure out where that question is coming from. All of the lots in this subdivision meet the 8,000 square foot requirement in the development code. But I do want to say that the code does allow for lot averaging. If somebody wanted to have a lot that was less than 8,000 square feet, as long as the average of every lot in the subdivision was 8,000 square feet, it could be approved that way. It's not the case here. I think the smallest lot is 8,001 square feet, but they all meet that 8,000 square foot standard or are larger. The block length and lot standard, that we're looking at here, the way that this subdivision marries to the subdivisions either to Baylor and what's just across the street, or on the backside, on the east side, there are places where the block length, the full perimeter on the block is longer than the standard, but it cannot be achieved. The standard can't be achieved because of how the things adjacent to it are built. So, we can't hold this applicant accountable for previous developments that don't meet the standard or don't allow for them to meet the standard. So we have deemed that, we can't hold them to something they can't meet, but where they can meet it, all of the internal lots, block perimeters meet the standard. Setbacks would be applied at the time of development, and they would be what would be found in chapter 2. Access and circulation, so each lot will need to have access to the street it is running and what's appropriate for a single family dwelling. An access permit will be required at the time of the development of the single family dwelling. I guess I should also say something they'll have to do is anywhere they're connecting to an established street, their street will need an access permit from, like from Baylor or from, but some of those streets are part of this subdivision already, and they wouldn't need an access permit in that particular case. Landscaping again is applied at the time of development of the individual single family dwellings. There's a standard in here about a 20-foot width for fire apparatus. Access drives shall be provided to serve all portions of the building that are located more than 150 feet from a public right of way or approved access drive. That criteria might be applicable in an industrial development or in a commercial development, but this is residential development, and all the streets are at city standards. There's no access drives, there's no building that's 150 feet from the street. So that criteria we deem to be not applicable. And then there are no common drives proposed to serve more than one lot. Each of the homes will have its own individual driveway and access point. So again, we deemed the item B6 to be not applicable as well. And then conditions of approval, we've got 3. So to support park development, the city is requiring that proposed lot 66 be dedicated to the city for development of walking paths or other natural amenities in the BPA easement area. That was discussed with the last proposal. I don't think it was as clearly delineated. And then we also require that they submit a final plat per review within 2 years of the date affixed below. And then again, we want to work with them to update the engineering plans. There's a couple of minor revisions that need to happen from the last time. It may be that those revisions could be captured in final as-builts. And really that's a conversation between the city engineer and the project engineer, whether that be Ron going forward or someone else. I think, the only other thing is that we did receive comment. I did receive an email from Gary Neal. If that name sounds familiar, it should. He was the port director for many years. He's since retired, but owns property in the neighborhood of this particular development and received a joining property owner notice. And he just reached out and sent an email saying that he and his wife Kathy are in support of the proposed subdivision. That they have property on the west side of Baylor. They believe that the proposed subdivision would be a welcome addition to the city of Boardman. in adding a well-planned and much-needed development to the city. The Mons have a proven record of investing quality homes in the Boardman community. Please approve this proposed subdivision plan. So, when we get talking about approval, I would ask that you add that email to the record and as an attachment to the findings. And other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think that oh, no, there's one more thing I want to touch on. So the other thing I noticed is that, they have submitted the same, preliminary plat from June of 2021. There was comment at the planning commission last go around that the street that's on the east side that runs north and south is shown on here as Southwest Gene Allen Road. And there was concern about conflict because there's another street in town called Allen, I believe. And there was concern about confusion for emergency responders between Gene Allen and Allen. Well, it's not notated on here. The applicant has indicated that their choice for a new name for that would be Mesquite. I've not done an evaluation yet with dispatch to see if that's appropriate or can be allowed. I don't foresee a problem. I'm not aware of another Mesquite either in Boardman or in the county, so it shouldn't be problematic. But that would be the only other thing that would be a change to the face of the plat when the final plat comes in, would be the name of that particular street. So I think that concludes my staff report. I'm glad to answer any questions that any of the commission members may have.
One question on 3D. Or no, on D, on conditional approval. Talking about lot 66, where is lot 66 on the map? I think it's
Yeah.
65.
Clear up on the top, very, very top lot.
Look at 66 right up top. Found it.
That's okay. Sometimes I lose things like that too.
I just want to find it.
Was that, I can't remember, we had a discussion sometime about the green space. Are we gonna do the green space? They were gonna use that under the power.
Right,
Power
that's-
line, right?
Yep, right, and that's lot 66. It's at the northernmost portion of the owned property.
And therefore, they don't have to have any inside of the development. That'll be just enough to service it.
Yep, that's in lieu of any other park development inside there, yeah.
I did not have any other questions. Okay, was there any other correspondence other than Gary Neal's?
No, that's the only correspondence, yep.
All right. Perfect. Does the applicant wish to present testimony?
Yes.
Would you mind, stepping to the microphone? Yeah, for our online audience?
I can handle that.
Can't guarantee the microphone is working, so just speak loud.
Dansville, I think.
Yeah, none of them are turning on for me today.
Hello?
I don't think so.
Just speak loud.
I can handle that too. My name is Ron McInnes, 79980 Prairie Loop Road, Hermiston. I'm acting as an agent for the Mons, Gary and Carol. And, again, I'm both the engineer and the surveyor for the project. So it happens that when I was the engineering manager at the Fort Morrow, we did phase one. It was kind of conglomerate of Mons doing some work, the Fort did some work, and we did phase one, which was 17 lots. This is lot 18 that is now replatted into 66 lots. So the history of that goes back, wow,
A long time.
a long time, 2010 or something of that nature, if I remember right. At any rate, prior to 2021, we had submitted a plat. It's identical to the one here, it's a 21. Kind of got approved, then there was some phasing pieces that all took place and we pulled all the phasing pieces out, and here we are, grand finale, do all of them and get it done. Carla already made mention, of the one road change from Gene Allen to Mesquite. And I do not remember the year the engineering plans were approved, but,
I believe 21.
I think it was 21, yeah. If you've got any other questions, I don't know what more there is to say about it. It's been kind of hashed over a number of times.
I have none, actually.
Wow.
In,
No, everything was in.
in 21, forgive me, I've slept since then. But were the lot sizes bigger?
No,
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 There's literally no change.
no change. I believe that this plat, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, I think was submitted in 2018 originally. And then kind of got massaged 2 or 3 times, was resubmitted in 21 with just a portion of the lots being phased, and none of the lots have changed since the original inception in, I believe, 2018. And if you were to look at the records of 2021, what was there, 22 lots that were a part of the phase? And all the other lots were kind of remainders to be phased later, and that's not the case now, so. You need more detail. Karen knows it all. Well, I would like to speak to that. Excellent. I think I'll bequeath this, yes. Thank you.
Excellent. Would you like to speak? Do you wanna speak?
Well, the only thing I would say, should I go up there and act like I'm official, or do you care?
I don't think it's working.
Okay, it wasn't just kind of put on the shelf. I guess I wanna say that there's been 3 or 4 developers come in and make proposals on this property. So they never went anywhere. No one ever developed the property. So here we sit. But I think that's where that 5,000 square foot lot comes. One of the developers came and talked to us about doing that on that property. So it isn't like that it's just a rumor out in the community. Those people came and talked to us and tried to get us to change that. Now, Gary and Carol, if they're gonna develop this, I am so happy. They are reputable people and they will do what they say they're gonna do. So. And I think as far as, this could be a really, I mean, if Gary and Carol are involved, and he has been committed to making Boardman a nice place to live. I mean, he will tell you that, I have no desire to be anything but make Boardman a better place, so. That's what I have to say about this.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor of the application? Does anyone wish to speak against the application? Not you. Any neutral testimony?
Tori,
I'll just say getting rid of Gene Allen, the name on the road. If you knew Gene Allen, you wouldn't get rid of it. Use a character. Made me laugh all the time. But whatever.
Well, there's Alan Court.
yeah, that's the conflict in the name, yeah. Tori, you logged on. I just want to make sure that we're not missing you, any information or testimony you wanted to provide.
Nope, I just listened in to seeing what was happening on the property. excited to hear that it's moving forward with something.
Thank you.
Okay, well, there's no rebuttal needed. Public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Does staff need to respond to any questions? There's no questions, so nothing to respond to.
Unless you have any further questions.
Does anyone on the commission have any questions? Ragnar, anything? Take that as a no.
That's a no.
Perfect. Any discussion by the planning commission? Anything we need to talk about?
The only thing I would ask is that as you deliberate and when you move to a motion, that you please incorporate into that motion the addition of the comment received from Gary and Kathy Neal being added as an attachment to the findings.
Yeah, that carries a lot of weight for me. Gary's been a pillar of Boardman in the surrounding county for many, many years.
Well, if we're gonna rename the road, we're not stick with the theme of the mountains and go.
I was
local.
wondering the same thing.
And go
I-
local, like Mount Emily.
No, yeah.
Local.
I mean, it's Gene Allen Road, like I'm with Mike, like that's a pretty good name too.
But I don't see confusion with that, but
Allen Court. Well, I mean, there's enough confusion as it is, you know, with Rippey Road and the front streets and, you know, the North Rippey or South Rippey and. I didn't have anything to add. Everything was straightforward. It was nice to see this come up again and be nice to see it develop. I didn't have any questions.
You, and Commissioner Aaron, if you want to send that back, you could certainly, ask the applicant and you wouldn't see it, but you could ask us to consider, as opposed to Mesquite, a mountain name for that other road. I don't know that we come up with a determination tonight, but, you know, I kind of asked that question too. We've got Chaparral, and we've got the one street name that is,
Yeah.
oh. Was that the other one?
Yeah.
So yes, the road on the west side road that runs north and south is actually Southwest Gattenbine Road. And to be honest, the road designation may change the street as well. I need to look and see what the kind of the consistency in the area is. Cause we use roads some places in the city and we use streets other places in the city and then we use avenues. But, Gattenbine is certainly not a mountain. Gene Allen was not a mountain. So if Gene Allen becomes Mesquite, is Gattenbine still what you want? Or if you wanna see mountains, would you wanna see mountains in all of them? Or would you want to, so again, I don't know that we would come up with a decision tonight, but if you wanted to evaluate those road names before we get to the final plat, we could certainly do that. And I'm good, actually, I'm good with the Gattenbine and the Mesquite. I'm just, you brought up a question or you made a comment, so that would be.
How are you spelling this new name? I wanna make sure I'm understanding this. Mesquite or Mesquite?
Mesquite, like a mesquite bush,
Oh, okay.
MESQUITE.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's that stinky plant that grows in the southwest.
Dairy's in beef, and that's what you use when you cook good food.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with the name personally, as Gene Allen. I'm with Mike, I don't really have concerns, I think Mesquite would be fine too. I'm going to Mesquite personally. Make a choice and stick with it, that's what I say. There's no discussion, do we want to entertain a motion to, approve DRB 24-000001 with the inclusion of the, correspondence from Gary Neal. So moved.
Was that you, Stan?
So moved. Okay, so we have a motion to approve, DIB 24-000001, as presented to include the public correspondence from Gary Neal, as part of it. Do we have a second?
Yeah, second.
We have a second. Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Connell,
Yeah,
Commissioner Tonight,
Yes.
Commissioner Irons,
yes.
and Commissioner Parisi.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have Carly, an official report for us?
Nothing written, just haven't gotten there yet. Last month we did talk a little bit about the Boardman development code audit. I don't wanna go back and revisit that, but if any of you had any questions about it, if you had a chance to kind of look at it a little bit, I'd be glad to do that. I didn't see any of you on the, Zoom call, but with the training for the Morrow County Planning Commission, and I'm not dinging any of you, it's, a couple of hours you won't get back. My question is there an interest from those of you that are here tonight and Reagan as well on Zoom to maybe invite Dawn from DLCD or even have me run through their slides at an upcoming planning commission meeting? Cause I'd
Yeah.
be glad to do that.
When was that training that we missed?
It was Tuesday, February 27th.
Oh,
It was a week after our last meeting.
It was after, yes, it was,
Yeah.
we met February 21st.
It got brought up, yeah. I wanted to make it, I had something come up and I couldn't make it, but I wanted to. That would be good. I would like that personally. yeah.
Okay, I will coordinate with Dawn and see if she can come, and if not, I'll ask her if she'll let me use her slides.
Okay.
So,
And.
so you're, sorry, go ahead.
No, what's the question, Ragna?
Oh, you're talking about the one that was in Oregon and we zoomed
Yes.
into? Yes, I did zoom in.
Oh, you did, okay,
I did.
I did, oh, good, okay, what did you think of it?
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, I mean, hit the high points, I think Dawn does a good job. I won't speak to the other presenter. He does a fine job, it's just kind of dry. So, okay, so we'll schedule something.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea. And then the other thing I want to mention is that, for the last several months, we have been working on a capital improvements plan for the city. The city council, there was a community session on that last Thursday. A handful of people were there, a lot of good questions, good discussion. I didn't attend. It was attended by Brandon, Amanda, and Mike Lees, who's the city's engineer. Really good questions, really good answers, I think. Well, I hope good answers. Again, I wasn't there, so I didn't hear it. The capital improvements plan is really looking at things that are of a kind of a general fund nature. It also includes in it a lot of the large planning projects that we need to do that require some investment. There's about 280 or, no, it's about 300,000, just over $300,000 worth of investment into updating the planning documents over the next couple of fiscal years. And then there's a number of things that come out of the water fund, the wastewater fund, and the street fund. And some of those things come out of all three of those funds. They're jointly funded. So it's a great document. City council will see it at the April 2nd council meeting and hopefully approve it as is or with minor modifications. So it's been an interesting project. It's been a whole lot of work, mostly for Mike Lees. But what's really going to be fun is that in a not too distant future, the meat of that document will be available on the city's website so that the community, including you all, our council, people who have an interest, will be able to go to the city's website and see these projects that are planned. I think that's a really great way to inform people about what's happening and where we're headed. I think this document kind of provides a roadmap for kind of where we are and where we're going. It is a 5-year document. It'll be reviewed and updated. Well, we'll make adjustments as needed, but it will be reviewed and updated every 2 years. So it's a living document. It'll keep moving with us. So it's been fun to work on that.
Nice.
So.
That's exciting.
Yeah, the only other thing I would ask is that last month I mentioned that we've had a couple of folks come in and ask questions about storage containers and their use. And I was hoping that I would be further along with drafting some potential recommended kind of standards. We're gonna put something in front of the council for discussion on April 2nd on this topic. And as I shared, kind of the history behind this is that storage containers have been allowed, and I say that in air quotes and loosely because there's really no standards for them in the development code. They've been allowed in commercial and industrial areas with really not a lot of requirements for them. They have been not allowed in the residential zone, and I think that is predominantly because in the residential zone, we do have a requirement that accessory structures be of like material to the primary structure. And so if you look at a container, storage container, and you want to get to like material, it doesn't look like a house. And that's the primary structure that you're compelled to match. And so again, I'm making some assumptions. Karen's here tonight, maybe she can fill us in on what she maybe knows with that history. But I'm making some assumptions about why they were not allowed in residential areas and may be allowed in commercial and industrial areas. I also think the intent initially was to allow them temporarily, and they've kind of become permanent uses in the commercial zone, more so in the industrial zone. And I think there's less concern in the industrial zone because they do kind of look like an industrial thing in an industrial zone. But they then kind of look like an industrial thing in a commercial zone or in a residential zone. So we've got 2 inquiries, one in a residential area and one in a commercial area. And the commercial area is actually kind of interesting because they don't want to use it as a storage container. They actually want to convert it and use it as the structure for the proposed, the business use. It's kind of unique.
Oh, like an office?
Actually a drive-through facility. So, yeah,
There's people building homes with them,
absolutely. I mean,
3-story homes.
you
unreal.
can go online and I've seen some really,
They got like this, like this, like this, they got doubles, it's unreal.
it is absolutely amazing, some of the things that they.
So if you had a house, you could have storage next to it, you could have one of these.
Well, yes, if you proposed a house out of storage containers in Boardman and it got to the approval process, yes, your shed could be another storage container because it would be of like material. So my question is, and really this is at a 20,000 foot level. What's your gut reaction to the utilization of storage containers, these shipping containers? And I will preface it with this. I think some of the things they've done with them from a design perspective in other communities is actually very interesting. And in talking with the building official, he's not opposed to them from a building perspective because locally they can meet snow load and wind load. So when you start looking at that, from a building perspective, you can kind of get there on the building permit side. You still have to go in and you still have to put your electrical in there, depending on what the use is. You still have to go in and put in your plumbing, your electrical, your mechanical if it's needed for whatever your application is. And your final use. I still have reservations on residential land as a storage, like in lieu of a shed, because the standard does say currently it has to be of like material. And by the time you say, well, you're gonna have to site it and put a faux roof on it, so it looks like your primary dwelling, you kind of defeated the purpose of utilizing it as a more inexpensive way to have a storage unit. You know, a storage shed on your own property. So I'm kind of, I'm conflicted.
I feel like it would almost be splitting it like with, like a tin storage shed on a property with a wooden home. It's not like material.
Right, and that's something that we've been trying to be more consistent with, is that the code says it has to be of like material. So if you've got a wood-sided house, then the storage shed you're proposing has to be of like material.
So a
And
detached shop or, RV storage shop, RV detached in a home that's metal, that falls under a different category than this?
so technically, and we've got some lots that are large enough that you can build a shop on, and where they have been built and they are a metal shop, they're a metal building, that is not consistent with what the code requires. So we're addressing that and saying, going forward, that would not be authorized, because it has to be, the code's clear, it has to be a like material to the primary structure, the house being the primary structure. So if it's a wood-sided house, then the shed, the shop, the whatever should be, it should look similar. It should have a similar look and feel to it. So,
Yeah, I can appreciate that part of it, except, I mean, as far as painting them, and you can paint it just like your house or whatever. I mean, a storage container has, the side goes like this, you know, or whatever, and a house doesn't. But in terms of longevity, you're gonna see wooden sheds fall down long before you'll see one of those fall down. And you can paint them just like your house. I mean, there's some around here that you don't even know they're there. You don't even notice them. And then there's other ones, metal shops or sheds, that are just terrible looking because of rust or whatever, they didn't take care of them.
right, and
It
again,
seems like it's limiting, and I'm not talking about storage so much as now just metal buildings or shop. It's limiting people's, options. And it's requiring you to spend, I would think, I'm not sure, but I would think it'd be more money for a light material building versus if you wanted a good sized one. As opposed to a metal shed or shop that these companies build everywhere.
I don't disagree with your premise there. On the thought about, kind of that light construction, you know, one of the clear things that's problematic with a storage container is it doesn't have a roof line like your house. But we have similar issues when somebody goes to, and I'm just gonna use hickory sheds as the example, because you say that and most people know what you mean. But if you go to that place either at Irrigan, or I think they're still in Irrigan, or out on the highway near Denny's in Hermiston, and you buy one of those hickory sheds. Even if it's less than 200 square feet, it is still problematic from a building permit perspective and a building review. You're exempt from building permits at that, but you still are required to meet some of the requirements of the building code. And they don't meet snow and wind load necessarily, they have to be anchored. And what we're discovering is the folks who are selling those, whether it be hickory sheds or other locations, they're telling the folks who are purchasing them that they don't have to get a local permit, which isn't accurate. They do have to get a local permit. Even at less than 200 square feet, we're still doing a development review to confirm that you're meeting setback and that it meets the requirements of a light building material. And the hickory sheds can meet that standard easier than a storage container can. But the problem is they're not engineered. So if it's something over 200 square feet and you have to also get a building permit, then you get hung up because you get into that building permit process and they're not engineered. So you go back to hickory sheds and say, I actually need the engineering for this, and they're gonna charge you several thousand more dollars to get the engineering, to get the stamped plans for that same building. So it's an awkward. Let's just say this has been a kind of a big learning curve, I think, for Nancy and I both, as we've kind of gone through this. The county does allow storage containers. They allow them in any zone, but they do require that the people who site them get a zoning permit and paint them so that they are, so you're painting over all of the graffiti that it might show up with, as well as you're painting over the shipping container name. Right, you're painting it so that at least they require it to be painted, and they are kind of requiring it to be painted to fit into the environment. So if it's out near the fields, you might paint it, you know, the same color as the walls here. If it's near a lot of trees, you might want to paint it a green, so it kind of blends in. They're looking for it to blend into the environment. And I think in the end, that's not a bad objective, because I don't disagree with your comment, Mike, that if they're painted, they can kind of blend in, and you might not even notice that they're there. So I'll be honest, I'm conflicted in this conversation. I'd like to figure out what a reasonable path is to get to yes, and do it in such a way that we can be somewhat consistent with our current code. And then recognize that we're gonna be changing that in the not too distant future. We can change those things in our code that deal with, it has to be a light material, those types of things. But again, I've got two people who have an interest, and I wanna get something done that we can get some kind of path so that people can move forward with what they want to do sooner than we could amend our development code. So I'm just kind of looking for any thoughts you have. I know it's a Tuesday night. or-
None that we haven't discussed.
Pardon?
None that we haven't discussed yet, or maybe.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of history you guys have had, you know, discussing this particular issue. Did it ever come up in your
I
conversations?
think it came up once before briefly, but there wasn't much discussed, if I recall.
Yeah. Yeah,
It was never a hot topic.
never, well, all of a sudden, it's kind
Serious discussion.
all of a sudden, it's kind of a hot topic. And of course, we've worked with a couple of businesses, just in the last month as well. Again, I mentioned too, we've got a third one where somebody came in on a commercial piece of property and wanted to do some additional work. We said, hey, but while we're having this conversation with you, you're gonna paint that storage container back there, and when we do have standards, you're gonna come in and get a permit for it. So, and please paint it in a reasonable light color, to what you've got on your property. So, you know, some people have said, well, the one in the grocery store is gone, they took it away, and I drove by there the other day specifically to look, and it's like, no, it's still there. But it is painted the same color as the store, and you get used to it, and you don't notice it, but it's still there. So, they're out there and they can blend in. So, yeah.
I don't know that I'm seriously opposed to it with appropriate like restrictions and standards in place, yeah.
Some kind of standard, paint it,
Yeah.
eliminate
Like
graffiti.
similar structures on the property and.
I mean, if you live in a single wide house, manufactured home, they look just like, they're shaped just like a container. And the older ones are like material, except not as thick.
There is truth to that.
I do have a picture.
Yeah,
Well, that's kind of where I was thinking with it, right? Like the pitched roof,
Just-
can't stack things on top.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
but I would ask this
Start
question,
stacking used tires on top of your container?
yeah, see, that's not any good right there. You can't let it turn into, you know, a storage in a junkyard. We're just, that's where code enforcement would step in and say, no,
right?
it's,
So maybe we have some kind of, in the residential zone, maybe some kind of real standard, and in the commercial industrial zone, it's a single, you don't put things on top. You just
Right.
don't, it's not allowed.
Yeah, I wonder about the stacking of them too. I don't know how high people are stacking. these things.
they stack them 15, 20 high on the ships and go out in the middle of the ocean with them. They're all locked together. But the ones that are building homes, they're fully welded and engineered to,
Oh, so it's one unit.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, it becomes one unit eventually when they finish, it. It's all welded and they're cut and basically they skin, or they skeleton them, frame them just like a house. And then sheet rock them, insulated, the whole 9 yards.
And they cut them and they put windows in them and.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes they keep the big doors as an opening onto a deck area. Sometimes they will leave the big doors and seal them and then,
Actually, I'm trying to picture it in my mind right now.
Just search them on YouTube, it'll blow you away.
it will blow you away, absolutely, I would.
And
agree.
the money is considerable. I watched the lady build one in downtown, just out of downtown, LA. And it took her quite a bit to get the permitting done, because they didn't believe her. But when she was done, she had a business and a home. I mean, just in $1 million area, and it was the best looking place on the whole street. And it's phenomenal, the way they did it.
Well, down in my parents have been snowboarding for a number of years, and in the community where they live, there is a fire and emergency response training compound. And they actually have a whole bunch of these containers, and they will use the containers, they move them around, they do a big crane, they'll move them around with, and they will set them up to be, and they do their training as though they were entering a confined space or entering into a home. It's really kind of interesting to see how they will move them around and how what they will do with them to make them like something in order to do that practice and training in. So there's a lot of uses that are out there for them. So if I'm getting the sense that if we have some basic standards, you guys are not opposed to them, industrial, commercial. Any concerns about a commercial use actually being developed in one? In lieu of building a building to use a container and modify?
No, I don't have a problem as long as they're doing it to code and it's, it's. However, there's a company in Lewiston, Idaho that builds them, cuts them in half and builds job site trailers, like the one we had out here forever outside City Hall, and they sell them all over the country. And, he just started doing it because his guys were slow one winter and started buying them and, does a great job.
Yeah,
And they're builders,
yeah.
bosses.
In a residential setting, clearly paint them to look like, put a pitch roof on.
I'm for pitched roofs in residentials with not only stacking, but like weatherproofing,
Make it at least look somewhat like the
Yeah.
associated structure.
aesthetically with
Yeah.
residential units, right? I'm not necessarily personally hip on, I don't, with the, like for like materials. If they can paint it and make it look like it's part of, the structure and domicile, and it looks like that. I don't know that we really need to be concerned what the actual material is.
Right.
Personally, tin shed versus wood shed, right? But yeah, the other issues we talked about, pitched roof and the aesthetics. What the big ones for me.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Ragnar, any thoughts from you?
Get this moot thing on. No, I'd have to look at the language of the code to make any determination, so.
Yeah, I haven't written anything new. I haven't had time to sit down and kind of.
No, but I mean, what is currently in the code?
Yeah, currently, as far as using storage containers, there's no language. It's just been kind of by. I don't know,
Right, minded structure and all that, but I'd want to look at the whole language in its entirety.
Yep,
So.
okay. Okay,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Does your neighbors have anything to say about this?
Well, that is kind of the issue too, is that if we make this change, no, I mean, my thought initially is to try to figure out how to address these concerns that are at the front end. Now, the commercial application, that's probably gonna trigger site design review, so adjoining property owners would get noticed on that in the commercial, because they're actually wanna do it as their building. So we would probably trigger a type 2 decision, which would be no hearing but notice. On the residential side, no, there wouldn't be. We do know there's at least one storage container that's been cited in the residential zone without an approval process. And the thought was, well, if we say no to the current people that are asking, then we probably need to go let the other people that have them know that they have to remove them. And I'm trying to figure out a way to kind of balance that. But currently, if somebody builds a 200 square foot shed in their backyard, neighbor doesn't get noticed either. So, yeah, there wouldn't be notice.
So is a container about 200 square feet, do you think?
No, it's more than that.
That would be a 20-footer.
Yeah, it's more than that.
Yeah, they can be more than
40 by
that.
10 or 40 by 12.
They can be smaller than that, but
Yeah.
most of them, and that might be, I mean, I think in some applications, it's gonna be somewhat limiting. Because they tend to be long and narrow, as opposed to more square or rectangle, you know. Because it would have to be, if it's over 200 square feet, it has to meet, side and rear yard setbacks. It also has to be 10 feet from any other dwelling to meet fire separation standards. So there could be some limitations on how large a container unit somebody would put in based on the other standards, but that would be applicable to any kind of storage that they put in their yard. So,
There's only 3 sizes, the 20-footer, a 40-footer, and a 44. And
okay,
they're all 8 foot wide.
they're all 8 feet wide,
They're all 8 foot wide, so that they can be in a,
right, you can get a boat, they can be on a train, they can be on a truck,
they can go on any of those places.
yeah, okay. So,
Yeah, I might be concerned about one too big in a residential area. I mean, cause someone could build a small home and then have just a huge shed that would.
Well, yeah, it would require approval for the 40 footers. I mean, the 20 footer is the only one I think that wouldn't. That's only 160 square foot. So that one would be the only one that wouldn't have to get approval. The rest of them, if you're gonna put one of the full-size ones on there, you're gonna have to get approval anyway. So better pick your lot and fit it and let it blend in and not just be this big thing sticking out of, right off the sidewalk
right,
or whatever. I mean, just, that'd be silly to think you were even gonna get that done.
even the smaller one would have to go through development review, because we would review for setbacks. And
Yeah,
at that point in time, we would apply the standard that, look, it has to be painted to
Sure.
be a consistent color, and you have to put a faux roof on it that would meet the pitch standard. And that helps meet the design standard pieces that we have in our development code. Sheds, accessory structures do not have to meet the full suite of design standards like a house does, but they do have to meet, well, maybe it's only one on an accessory structure, so. If they put the roof on, they meet that design standard. Yeah, okay, hey,
Okay.
I appreciate your input very much, yeah. I don't think I have anything else, appreciate the conversation.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We're on to public comment. Is there any comments or anyone else that would like to make a public comment? Online or otherwise? Yeah. Would you like to make a public comment? No?
Wow.
This is our first planning commission meeting.
Are they gonna get school credit for this or just dad credit
This
for
is
this?
dad credit.
This is dad credit, okay.
Wanted to know what dad does down at City Hall.
It's a good lesson in civics.
Yeah. Okay. Any comments from the commission before we adjourn?
Before you adjourn,
Yes.
do have 2 action items for the April meeting, so we will be meeting. The Silver Garden Hotel was not appealed.
It was not.
Not appealed, we anticipated an appeal, and, they did not. So that project will be moving forward. There was one other thing about previous decisions I was thinking about, and not coming right now, so anyway, we're gonna be busy in April.
Good.
The road. City Council Road, the Unity Loop. Yeah, so on the Mulvey Manufactured Home Park, the one that was approved, many months ago. We're working with them on getting them moving towards construction, installing infrastructure. And we are going to be in front of the city council, next month, there will be an ordinance to name the road. For that manufactured home park, it's proposed to be Unity Loop. So, that's moving forward, and then again, we will have 2 items next month, that will be. One should be real easy, the other one might have some audience members, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, I guess it's that time to adjourn. Thank you very much.
Good night, thank